Hi, and welcome to today's webinar, Deliver More and Fail Less with DevOps. I'm your host, Shah. Before we begin the presentation, I have a few housekeeping notes for you. You are currently in the listen-only mode. If you experience any technical difficulties during the webinar, please click on the yellow help widget at the bottom of your screen. Also, just to let you know, this is an interactive session, so feel free to type any questions you have into the questions window. We'll be taking these during the Q&A portion of the webinar at the end of the session. I'd also like to mention that today's presentation will be recorded and available to you for future playback. Before we begin today's knowledge share, let me quickly introduce Mastek to you. Mastek is a digital transformation specialist that engineers excellence for customers in the UK, US, and India. We enable large-scale business change programs through agile consulting, digital commerce, BI and analytics, app development, support, and testing. Whether it's creating new applications, modernizing existing ones, or recovering failing projects, we help enterprises to navigate the digital landscape and stay competitive. Now, I'm pleased to welcome our speakers, Gordon Cullum, who is the CTO of Mastek, and John Wright, who is the head of DevOps at Indigo Blue. With that, I'll turn the presentation over to you, John.
Thanks, Shah. Hello, everybody. Today's presentation, we'd like to take you through not just about DevOps, but also a demonstration of ChatOps and how things like ChatOps can help on the service management side within a DevOps culture. So before we get started on the actual presentation, we'd quite like to run a couple of polling questions just to gauge what type of audience we have and what sort of things that you might be interested in. So I just displayed up the first question. If you could take, I don't know, 30 seconds to be able to answer this question for me. So are you following a DevOps approach or considering it? And the answers available to you are yes, and it's working well. Yes, but experiencing some challenges. No, but considering it, and not considering it at this time. So if you can spend a few seconds just to answer that for me, that would be great. And while you're doing that, we'll just take a little bit of time. Yeah, we can see some answers coming in now. That's great. Okay, so I'm going to move forward into the result of the poll. Hopefully you've all had time to answer. Just give you an extra couple of seconds. Yeah, one or two more. Right, there we go. So just going to move forward. I think that's most of the answers are in there now. So yes, some of you are experiencing some challenges. No, but considering it is about a third of you, and half of you are not considering it at this time. So hopefully, during this session, you'll have a little bit of an understanding of DevOps and how that might be useful to you, and how that might impact on your organization, particularly from a service management perspective. So that's the first question. We'd like to move on to a second question there. So what sort of challenges are you experiencing? So of those of you that have started and having a few challenges or just embarking on this, it'd be interesting to understand, and please tick as many as you feel like in this. Not releasing as often as you would like, struggling to get buy-in from senior and compliance stakeholders, IT operations struggling to adapt to change, project governance slowing things down, holding back working in a legacy environment, dependencies on suppliers without DevOps capabilities, or something else. So if you could just tick one of those boxes or two of those boxes, give us a little bit of a feel for the sorts of things that you're interested in. So again, we'll give you a little bit of time to start answering that. We're starting to get some answers in there, so we just give you a little bit longer to answer. Thank you for this in. We're almost done, and then we can get on with the presentation. Okay, another 5 or 6 seconds. 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 5 or 6 Okay, I'll move forward to the answer to the poll. So, from a quick feedback of that, a lot of you are struggling to get buy-in from senior or compliance stakeholders. Some other stuff there about dependency on suppliers without a DevOps capability and not releasing as often as you would like. So it looks like buy-in, understanding why DevOps is important, are quite important to you, but also becoming responsive and using DevOps to enable you to be responsive to your market are important to you. So hopefully we'll get the opportunity to talk through those as we go through the presentation. So just to kick off, the world of infrastructure sort of changed forever. This isn't really a recent change, but it's been a shift away from internally managed processing of power and storage to a move towards cloud computing. This is sort of changing the way that we need to design, build and support business applications. And sort of that first wave of cloud computing was sort of predominantly sort of a lift and shift exercise for organizations who probably weren't digital natives. But that lift and shift exercise, while it provides some financial rewards, when you're managing your IT infrastructure, it doesn't always provide the business with responsiveness that you might want. So you're not necessarily getting all those benefits of moving to cloud infrastructure that you might otherwise expect. Within that, you then need to start to think about how we rethink the way applications are designed, built, supported, and can provide much greater benefits than a simple lift and shift of infrastructure. The use of sort of DevOps techniques such as continuous integration, test automation, continuous deployment has been sort of commonplace within agile software development for many years, but the responsiveness realized in the sort of design and development part of the process is often compromised when it comes into deploying applications into production. So what we're looking at with this approach is how DevOps can utilize the DevOps tooling techniques to get better responsiveness into your process and encourage collaboration and innovation. So just a very brief sort of what is DevOps, and I don't intend to go into a long list of tools and technologies at this point, because to me, DevOps is not really, it is all about the technology and it is all about that enabling stuff, but it's more about the culture that you're trying to establish in your environment than necessarily the different tools and techniques that are out there, because they'll all be different in whichever technology sets you're using and which environments you have. It's predominantly about building a culture that's focused on building sort of stability and compliance and governance into your delivery process. So yes, we can design and build software quickly and iteratively with our stakeholders, but again, we get to that barrier when it comes to putting things into production. And to try and deal with that, we need to start rethinking about how we deal with release processes and optimize that for shifting those deployment processes and those security and compliance concerns into the development processes. What we're trying to achieve by doing that is not compromising the stability and availability of the systems, but we're trying to focus on how those activities can be conducted by the delivery process without actually compromising that. Typically, the DevOps culture will give you the ability to provision environments easily, and it will give you the ability to deliver and deploy applications continuously. By applying sort of good professional software engineering practices, the art of service management, you get fully audited change management and deployment, you get embedded compliance and vulnerability checking, you get effective monitoring with the ability for applications to self-heal or self-scale. So a DevOps culture can provide a business with an optimized agile development process that delivers responsiveness without compromising quality, security or data integrity. Sort of moving on a little bit to sort of who cares about DevOps. I suspect that most of us care about sort of the quality of work that we produce and genuinely want to add value for the business that we work for. I suggest that everyone benefits when a business adopts a DevOps culture. So if you sort of think about it, there's some key benefactors to DevOps. So development teams, they would benefit from easy access to production-like environments, accessible configuration management, build, test and deployment tools, enable them to get early feedback on failure well before any software makes its way into the release process. Operations teams get early sight of operations requirements, get comfort from being engaged in design and development of an automated path to live process, and get peace from the early engagement in the requirements. Now, security teams, they get their embedded vulnerability checking into the deployment process, so they're fully auditable and minimize and eliminate risk by manual intervention in production environments. Architects are able to design applications to take full advantage of cloud infrastructure, encourage innovation with delivery teams while standardizing on common practices. CTOs, they benefit from reduced operational resource costs, simplified technology estates, and peace of mind from a productized operational capability. But most of all, I think the business, they benefit from a faster, more frequent release cycles, being able to respond to customer demand more effectively, and eliminate operational risk of being dependent on operational development heroes to resolve production issues. So with all of that sort of in mind, operational service management is changing. The business demands frequent releases. The availability and stability expectations are higher than they've ever been before. Security and compliance is quite critical. And DevOps techniques provide auditability, quality, and repeatability. And we want to get into a situation where control is not compromising the responsiveness that we get into the business. I'm going to hand over to Gordon, who's going to introduce the role of ChatOps within service management, and how our and then that will be passed on to Prachi then to go through a demonstration.
Thank you, John. So one of the criticisms often labelled at the tooling stacks that you build for Agile and DevOps and so on is the plethora of different interfaces that the development and operations teams now need to be able to sort of juggle to be able to manage their development pipeline, their deployment pipeline, and their test pipeline. For argument's sake, you've got interfaces for things like ticket management, you've got pipeline management tools, you've got deployment orchestration tools, code control repositories, etc. Long gone are the sort of bad old days where you sort of coded up in Eclipse, switched to a Linux console, ran the build and copied the file, and that was it. It's actually quite a lot more complex now. Our ChatOps concept brings all of this together as an idea into a single UI, enabling the team to collaborate regardless of location through a chat-style interface. The idea is that interface handles integration with those dev, CI, CD tools, and etc. So developers can talk to each other through the console, through the chat console. They can also use the chat console almost as if it were a CLI, but in a much more chatty style. We then further augment that concept with a bot. The differentiator here is that the bot can act almost as a virtual member of the team. So the bot isn't just there to act on instructions from the team, although that's one of the major points of the integration. The bot can also act to a certain degree semi-autonomously, taking control of issues when issues arrive in a live environment, as indicated by things like perhaps service management, operations management tools. So with that, we shall talk quickly about some of the tools we're going to see. Oh, sorry, I've gone past that slide. So for the purpose of this demo, we're going to show an integration of a number of tools that fill those spaces. So we talked about ticket management. So in this case, we'll be using Jira and Trello for a combination of functional change ticket management and for service management. Just for the purpose of the demo, we have demoed this in the past for things like ServiceNow and etc. The chat interface for this purpose is Slack. We espouse Mastek Slack quite a lot. We have worked in environments where people use Skype, and there are of course similar concepts and bot technologies available for Skype. For this, we'll be using Slack. From a pipeline management point of view, we'll be demoing the console driving Jenkins, which is actually driving the continuous integration process and continuous deployments. And there are a couple of other tools in there for doing things like managing system codified local operating procedures, which are required for the ability for things like the bot to auto-heal for known scenarios that can arise. For the purpose of the demo, we've also integrated a bit of authorization and access control using LDAP, just to make sure that we've got any questions covered up about access control. You haven't got rogue developers able to go and change things in a live environment. And the bot itself is a technology called HuBot, which is available from GitLab. So with that, I shall hand over to Prachi, who's a member of our development team for the ChatOps solution, and she's going to run through a couple of scenarios to demonstrate how Maverick, well, that's the name of our bot, runs our ChatOps solution.
Thank you, Gordon. The introduction to our ChatOps framework, Maverick, was very apt. We'll be demonstrating the capabilities of Maverick today through a role play where we will enact as two different lines of service interacting with Maverick. My colleague Umesh Dandi will be a DevOps team representative, and I'll be playing the role of TechOps. We'll be showcasing two different scenarios during the demo. Our first scenario is self-healing of service provided by Maverick following a service or a system failure. Our second scenario is a feature change requested by our end users to change the content of a web application. Please bear with us as we are doing the scenarios live. I'm just going to share my screen now. I hope the demo screen is on and the Windows Media Player screen is on. Let's get accustomed to all our screens here. So this is our Slack chat room where we will receive notifications from all our tools and the teams who will interact. This is our Nagios screen, which is currently monitoring our servers and services. This is our Jira screen where we are going to take care of incidents. This is our Trello where we are going to track our problem records. What you're looking at now is our Jenkins screen where we build the code. And this is a sample web application which will be handy during one of our demonstrations. So let's start with our first scenario, which is self-healing of service by Maverick. We are back on our Slack screen. Here we should now see some notifications from Nagios. So what we are looking at is Nagios has identified an issue that the service Tomcat is in a critical state. Maverick has acknowledged this notification and created a ticket in Jira. Let's go on to our Jira screen to see if the ticket has been created. The ticket has been created with the number 1102. So there you go. A ticket has been created for us. It's in the open status. What Maverick does is it creates a separate channel taking this ticket number, and all our details on the channel is going to be where we are going to solve the incident. So let's hop on to our channel now. Here Maverick has created this channel and set the purpose that the service Tomcat is in a critical state. Along with that, Maverick has also invited all the team members who might be working on this particular incident. Here, Maverick then checks for the configurations on our run deck and whether it can do a self-healing of this Tomcat service. So it says that the self-healing of the Tomcat service has been triggered. So now it is for our TechOps team to do the further health checks. As part of the TechOps team, the first thing that I would like to do is increase the priority of this particular ticket because Tomcat is a very critical service. And to do that, I will now instruct Maverick to raise the priority to high. By default, Jira logs in the priority as medium. So I've instructed Maverick to set the priority to higher priority, and with the application down being the reason. I'm now then going to assign the ticket to myself. So that means I've just input the wrong ticket number. So let me just change that for you. So there you go, our priority has been changed. I'll now assign the ticket to myself. The intelligence that we have built in Maverick is that when we assign the ticket, it transitions the ticket to the in-progress status. So if you look at the Jira screen, as you can see, the ticket has now been moved to the in-progress status. If I check the assignee, there you go, I've been assigned the ticket, and also let's see the priority of the ticket. It has now been changed to high. Let's go back to our Slack screen. The next thing I want to do is instruct Maverick to check the status of Tomcat service on Nagios. So to do that, let me fire this command. Great. So it has come back with the status it being okay. The next thing for me to instruct Maverick is to do a graphical representation as well. So there you go. There was a drop in the service, but now it is back up around 1340. Now that the service is back up and running, and as a TechOps team member, I've confirmed that, let me put appropriate comments onto my Jira ticket, saying that the Nagios service is up and running. And then I will want to resolve this ticket. Right. So if you go onto our Jira screen, you see that the ticket 1102 has now moved to the resolved state. I can also see the comments that I had put here on the Slack channel, and I had asked Maverick to set the comment on Jira. There's one more feature that we have built in Maverick, and that is attaching the entire log of the channel onto Jira. This is a very important feature because if I open this attachment, you'll see that the entire log of the channel has been saved here. We generally, on any ITSM tool, we generally input only those reactive changes that we want to see on the ticket. We've never seen an entire log of the ticket for an auditable purposes, and this can be a very important feature. So this ends our first scenario. To summarize the scenario, we've seen that Nagios is continuously monitoring the servers and the services. Upon any failure, Nagios sends notification onto Slack. Maverick acknowledges this notification and creates a ticket in Jira. Taking the Jira ticket number, Maverick then creates a separate channel on Slack. This is where all the details of what has been going on to the channel and how the incident has been fixed are present. Maverick then checks the configurations onto Rundeck, and if it finds any configurations set, it will then allow self-healing of the service and prompt TechOps to do further health checks. As we have seen here, Maverick is our sole orchestrator. The team members instruct Maverick to perform certain tasks on various servers. For demonstration of the service scenario, we check different applications, like Jira, to validate things if things were actually happening. We expect that the team wouldn't have to jump onto different servers to verify and would be able to access various services from a single platform, that is Slack. To move on to our next scenario, let's go and check Slack. And for this one, we will stay on Slack and verify at the end of the scenario. So we see that a new channel has been created with 1103 ticket. Let's go on to the channel. So Maverick has created this channel, and the purpose that it says that the web application content needs to change on the Mastek web page. Now, there is no configuration set for this particular one because this is a source code change, and that is why Maverick returns back saying that this issue cannot be addressed by Maverick. As a DevOps team member, I know that it will be the DevOps team who will need to also intervene and try and help on this issue. So I'm going to involve my team member Umesh, and let me invite him to this channel. So I have now invited Umesh to this channel. The first thing that I need to do is assign the ticket to myself, and to do that, let me instruct Maverick to do that for me. Right, so now that the ticket has been assigned, I need to have a word with Umesh, and to do that, Slack has a feature built in, that is the appear.in feature, which allows me to do an audio-video conference and open a meeting room where I can discuss this particular issue with my DevOps team. So if I click on the meeting room now, so I have my DevOps team here. I'm going to exit from the meeting room. On the meeting, we have discussed that since this is a source code change, we need to create a problem record for it. Now, I'm going to, as a DevOps team member, I'm going to raise a problem record, and of course, I will not do it myself. I will instruct Maverick and create a problem record on Trello. So I'm instructing Maverick to get the lists that are available on the Maverick project. And on the Maverick board, I now need to create a problem record. So a problem record has now been created. I will, as part of the service management process, I will now have to resolve this incident with appropriate comments giving the reference of the problem record in, and the code changes will be taken care of at the back of the problem record then. So to do that, let me put appropriate comments. And I'll also mark my ticket 1103 to resolved. Right, I'm going to inform Umesh from DevOps that a PR has been raised, a problem record has been raised, and he can then do the source code changes. So Umesh, till the time Umesh is going to work on the source code changes, he will do the source code and commit the changes into Git, and then will instruct Maverick to build the code via Jenkins. Umesh has just asked Maverick to build a code on Jenkins, and as you can see that the build has now been started. So we are instructing Maverick to do tasks for us on various tools so that we don't have to go on to different applications. Right, so let's see what has happened here. Umesh tried to build a code. Of course, that was successful, it was completed. But then Umesh, being a part of the DevOps team, also tried to deploy the code using, by instructing Maverick to deploy the code on Rundeck. Now, Maverick has very smartly restricted Umesh from doing that. And this is where our role-based access control comes into picture. And it will be the TechOps team, that will be me, who will be executing the deployment. Right. So we've just triggered the Rundeck code by instructing Maverick. Let's wait till the job gets completed. So let's see if the job is completed and check our web application. So if I just, so as you can see, our web application has been modified. Now, this ends our scenario, of course, but all that remains is to close the problem record. So to do that, I'll have to again instruct Maverick to get the cards in the list PR backlog, and once it gets the card, I just need to move the card to the closed list. So if we can now go and check whether Maverick has actually done what it said that it did. So if we check on our Jira screen, 1103 ticket is now in the resolved status. As you can see, there are appropriate comments left by us that the PR problem record has been raised. The ticket has been assigned to me. If I go on to the Trello screen, my 1103 problem record is now in the closed status. If we go on to our Jenkins screen, we should see the code build 163. That's been completed now. And of course, we've seen the sample web application. So if I had to summarize this scenario, so the end user requests a change in the content of the web application. He inputs this ticket in Jira. So once the ticket is received onto Jira, there is a notification from Jira onto Slack. Maverick then acknowledges this notification and creates a channel in Slack. Once the channel has been created, team then decides that since this is a problem record, this is where a problem record will be required, where we'll be handling this source code change. So a problem record has been created in Trello by Maverick. Maverick then closes the Jira incident and the DevOps team then make the code changes in Git. Maverick then triggers the Jenkins code and then deploys it onto Rundeck. And once the code has been deployed, we see the changes in the sample web application. So this ends our scenario of feature change. I'll hand over to John now to summarize.
Thanks, Prachi. So I think what you should have seen through that demo is that it can be quite useful to have a ChatOps interface when you're dealing with service management, whether they're production issues or whether they're change requests that need to be made as part of business as usual change. And you get a full audit of what's been happening as part of that process. I think to make the sort of changes that that's required to sort of benefit from a DevOps culture, obviously it has impacts on service management, but it'd be quite useful for us to take just a quick look at what that culture change is about. So I'm just going to rattle through a couple of slides before we conclude the webinar, and if you've got any questions, now's a good time to start asking them. In terms of the responsibilities within creating a DevOps culture, we're trying to establish a consultancy ethic within the organization. So a DevOps team I've referred to in the slide, but there's only really a need for a team whilst the culture has been established. Once you've established a new way of working, then there's no real need for a separate DevOps team. It just becomes a way of working that everybody is used to. So to switch into a consultancy mindset, ensuring that having your DevOps team to help make sure that applications are designed and built using appropriate and standardized tools, encourage automation wherever possible, so whether that's testing, build, deployment or scalability, adopting processes that can embrace change and responsiveness. If you look at governance, so being able to design and embed the security and compliance processes into the development and deployment processes, and security and compliance and auditability can't be ignored or bypassed. And finally, it's to encourage innovation. So a DevOps team, whilst it's trying to enforce stability and consistency and control over deployment, we still want to encourage development teams to innovate. So a DevOps team would work and collaborate with those teams and drag new ways of working into the capabilities within the organization and make that available to other teams. This typically is going to involve quite a lot of organizational and operating model change. I think you'll be pleased now I'm not going to go through the whole of this slide. I think, in essence, it's embedding the DevOps capabilities, particularly when you look at security, networking and architecture, into the delivery teams. You're trying to change the people that are responsible for those activities, giving them a software engineering mindset, getting them to embed into the development process and getting them to be proactive in reducing the time that it takes from building software to deploying it. Obviously there's some implications on that in terms of the way the organization is structured, which is one of those things that we'll talk to you should you be interested. Just finally, in terms of creating a culture, there's a number of different things that you'd be interested in, you need to consider. So skills, there's probably an awareness, training and coaching at different types of level, whether that be at executive level, management, specialists, or whatever. From a tooling perspective, being able to design your solution so that they're responsive, being able to deliver things as infrastructure as code, embed security into your solutions, and finally, from a management perspective, gain buy-in to the need for change and the benefits. As probably as Ken Beck probably originally said, you need to be able to embrace the change. So that sort of summarizes most things. Just finally, and this is a blatant opportunity to show a picture of my family, what are the benefits from adopting this sort of approach? So yeah, what we're trying to do is we're trying to encourage businesses that are demanding more responsiveness and satisfying that need. We're trying to establish a DevOps culture. We're trying to optimize delivery and release governance processes, reduce risk and increase delivery quality by removing hands from production, change the approach to service management. And ChatOps is just one of those ways of using DevOps toolsets within a service management approach. And helping with things like self-healing and self-scaling, and controlling and auditing deployment of application changes. Finally, key thing is just to embrace change and automation to improve responsiveness within your organisation. So that sort of covers off the content from our webinar. We're just going to, I think, drift into questions.
Yeah, thank you, John and Gordon, for the presentation. I think we have had a few questions come in, so I'll hand it back to you guys and you can run through those.
All right, so there's a question there from Luke. Any particular challenges interfacing Maverick with enterprise-level tooling such as ServiceNow?
Thanks for that question, Luke. So, as we mentioned before, we've deliberately chosen some fairly simple scenarios here using Jira and Trello. We have looked at the interfaces available in ServiceNow. We haven't actually built an interface for the purpose of this demo, nor have we one of our solutions, but we are working on one right now. I don't think I've actually got our service architect in the room with us. I don't think we're actually facing any particular challenges right now. All the functionality that you saw there with the integration between Maverick and Jira and Trello is available, and we're not facing any particular problems with it.
Yeah, we have actually implemented for ServiceNow. We have implemented the integration with Maverick as well with one of our clients. So it's partly there, but we know it can be done.
Okay.
Thanks for that, Luke.
Thanks for that, Luke. Right, another question there from. No, sorry, that was something else. Yeah, so another question was, where have you used sort of ChatOps approach in production? And I think probably the best answer to this is we've used it both at the Met Police and within the Ministry of Justice. It's not necessarily specifically this Maverick tool, but we have used a lot of these techniques within that environment, specifically for keeping track of auditing and changes and getting that level of control, and also encouraging team collaboration. So they're probably the key clients that we've currently used this approach on. And then probably just one last question I think we've got time for, Shah. So what are typical self-healing scenarios that you've come across?
I guess the typical things are, unfortunately, the hangovers from failed deployments, to put it fairly bluntly. It's typically things where there are hangovers from things like memory leaks in web applications and things like that, where the server, an unforeseen fallover. The kind of thing that perhaps a couple of years ago would have been writing cron jobs to restart the server manually every night, just because we haven't got the time to go and fix the actual underlying resource leak that might be occurring in the application. So they're the typical kind of things we tend to find that can be orchestrated very simply. It's really more of a question, not for ChatOps, but more for where do you create local operating procedures in a standard service environment anyway. What we demoed here with the particular tool we're using here called Rundeck is a way of automatically calling a set of system-coded local operating procedures. It's probably a fancy way of saying script, actually, but there's a bit more to it than that, because it can do things like pre-checks and post-checks and things like that. That's all bedded into the solution. But yeah, typically it's the resource leak type scenarios that we've never got the development team have never got around to fixing. So you'd hope that the kind of things that exist in Rundeck should deplete over time, because your development environment is now enabled for faster pace of change, and that should allow you to start working on your technical debt.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right, thanks, Gordon. That's great. That's Shah. I think that's all we've got time for. So.
Yeah, that's all we have time for in the Q&A today. If you do have any additional questions, please feel free to write to us directly at info@mastek.com or directly to John and Gordon. Their email addresses are on the screen at the moment, and we'll respond to your questions as quickly as possible. I'd like to take the time to thank Gordon and John today for being with us, and also a special thank you goes out to you, the audience. We hope the session was informative and that you can use some of the information you've heard today. Have a great day, and we hope to see you at our next event. Thank you.